You may have heard that you need over $1 million at least to retire. I'm going to show you why that is absolutely false, and I'm going to do so with a real world example. Two of my real world clients, we're going to look at their actual numbers, their portfolio, their expenses, their income, and I'm going to show you how they are absolutely thriving in retirement on a portfolio of $750,000, well less than $1 million, and how you might be able to do the same as well. The point of this video is that in order to decide whether your portfolio is large enough for you to successfully retire is to run the actual numbers. Do not go by rules of thumb, but actually look at your particular situation and make an informed decision. So let's take a look at James and Jane Roberts. This is a pseudonym, but they are two real clients, and see how they are doing it. All right, we've got James and Jane Robert here, which is a pseudonym for a real client. I wanted to protect their identity, so we've got a fake name here, but this is a real situation. They've got $88,000 in savings. They've got $750,000 roughly in liquid investments. You can see that's far below $1 million. And they've got a $400,000 home that they paid off. So we got a net worth of a little over $1.2 million, but liquid investments, $750,000. We've also got budgeted for them $3,000 in living expenses, $6,400 in annual retirement healthcare expenses, and $75,000 of end of life long-term care expenses. We are planning on buying a new car here in 2028. So that's a $20,000 down payment. Of course, they want to keep a minimum of $50,000 in emergency savings. And they anticipate needing a new roof here in the next 8 years. So we've got a $25,000 expense for a new roof. If we look at their asset simulation here, there's really not, they don't run any risk of running out of money during retirement. They've got far less than $1 million, and yet they are just fine if we run this through a Monte Carlo analysis. You can see this lighter band down here. This is basically what if things go really bad. This is the bottom 5% scenario that could play out. And you can see that there's no real risk here of them running out of money. So let's take a look and see why. We can see that their total outflows are, we'll call that $55,000. It jumps up here when they buy that new vehicle or make that vehicle purchase closer to $80,000 and over $100,000 whenever they replace their roof. But you can see for the most part, they are bringing in more money than they're spending in retirement, all despite having less than $1 million portfolio. So let's take a look at their income. Jane's got a part-time income here. This is just a nominal amount of income for Jane's part-time work that's going to be dropping off here in the next couple of years. They've got Social Security that's doing a really good job of covering their bases, $55,000. I should mention here, Jane and James are 70 and 71, so next year they'll be 71, 72. And Social Security is doing a great job of covering their mandatory, non-discretionary living expenses, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, that's great, but what happens to James and Jane when they cut Social Security because it's insolvent or something like that, right? Well, here's a couple things. One, that's unlikely to happen to somebody who's already receiving Social Security. I suppose it's not impossible, but I would imagine there would be some sort of grandfather clause. That's how those things usually work, where any changes to Social Security don't take effect until future retirees benefit. But maybe you're in your 50s or 60s and watching this video, and you're still concerned. So let's take a look at their stress test. Even if they cut Social Security by 30%, something that I find unlikely personally, they have a close to 90% chance of success, meaning there's a 90% chance or close to 90% chance that they won't run out of money, even if that happens. So they are in good shape. Let's take a look at their withdrawal rates. You can see they have extraordinarily low withdrawal rates. What this is telling me, you can see that they're spending less than 2% of their portfolio in 2027, essentially zero next year, to a little over 2% 2028. It never really budges up above 3%, except for in their final years when we're paying those end of living expenses. They are in great shape. And the reason is not because they have a multi-million dollar portfolio. The reason is because they have almost no debt, and they are relying on Social Security to cover the majority of their non-discretionary living expenses. Now, one of the big questions that retirees often have going into retirement is, should I take a mortgage with me in retirement? There's two schools of thought here. There's some people that say, yes, a mortgage is perfectly fine. It gives you flexibility and liquidity because you're not dumping a bunch of money into your mortgage as you enter retirement. You're not tying up that money, so you have a lot more flexibility. You also potentially benefit from being able to write off your mortgage interest, which is fantastic. But I'm telling you right now, there is nothing wrong with paying off your mortgage. James and Jane paid off their mortgage, and they are thriving in retirement. And one of the reasons they are thriving in retirement is because since they don't have any debts, and it's not just mortgage, they don't have credit card debt, they don't have any auto loans or anything like that, their Social Security is completely covering their living expenses. In a lot of parts of the country, especially the Midwest and the South, this is not unusual at all to have your Social Security payments completely covering your living expenses. And I think the big takeaway here is, instead of shooting for a number, if you applied the 4% rule and just ignored Social Security, for example, a lot of people like to ignore Social Security in their retirement analysis. If you applied a 4% rule to James and Jane's figures, remember, they were spending close to $60,000. If you divide 60,000 by 0.04, that's going to give you the number associated with the 4% rule. And by the way, the 4% rule is just a suggestion that says if you don't spend more than 4% of your portfolio in any given year, you're unlikely to run out of money in retirement. If they applied the 4% rule to their expenses here, that is a $1.5 million portfolio. They have exactly half that, and they are thriving in retirement. So I understand the urge to be conservative and want to make very conservative assumptions, but the danger is that you delay retirement for longer than necessary because you're not crunching the numbers and making a decision based on the facts. What James and Jane have done is they have taken account of their income, their expenses, and they are retiring with absolute confidence. They are in great shape, and I am happy for them. And look, it's not as if they're taking a lot of risk with this $750,000 portfolio. We've got a 50-50 portfolio here. That's a very conservative portfolio. They are not trying to leverage that portfolio for a lot of returns. So they are doing great there. And it's not as if also they have a bunch of tax-free money here. This is 2/3 of their money is in tax deferred accounts. The big takeaway here is, do not rely on rules of thumb or some imaginary figure that you think you need to retire. Instead, what you should do is you should look at your living expenses, take account of your portfolio, take account of any income sources that you're going to have in retirement, and run the projections. And that will allow you to retire with confidence. Okay, so as you have seen, James and Jane are absolutely thriving in retirement on a portfolio less than $1 million, and you might be able to do the same. Again, the point of this video is to ignore the rules of thumb you may have heard of online and to run your actual numbers. Know what your expenses are, know what your anticipated sources of income are, and run the actual numbers, because the number you might need to support yourself in retirement may be a lot less than you think. And guess what? That gives you options. It gives you options that you may not even have realized that you had. And if you have grandkids that you want to visit, places that you want to travel, people that you want to see, then I think it is absolutely vital that you know all the options available to you and not follow the rules of thumb that you see online, because doing so might rob you of the time you have available to go do those things. I hope you found this useful. My name is Erik Goodge. I am a chartered financial analyst, a certified financial planner, and the owner of UVest Advisory. Please like and subscribe if you found this useful, and I will see you next time.